Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for part 2 of the Q&As. So let's go ahead and knock this out. All right, first question. Hey Jason, I train 3 times a week. Squat, bench, pull-up, press, and deadlift. It's a good exercise selection. I do 3 sets of 5x8 on each and increase like the old school systems you recommended in the past. On the deadlift, I usually ramp up to a heavy triple and back off triples with double overhand. I want to get as strong and thick as possible as I can with this system. However, I want to replace 1 day a week the deadlift with something else. What are my options? 5x3 power clean, good morning, Romanians. That's a good question. And yeah, I like what you're doing. I mean, that is really a traditional way to train. Look, you've got the big 5, really, right? Big 5. You can get all around big and strong on those 5 exercises because it's not just the squat, bench, deadlift. You've got the standing press and you've got pull-ups, right? That's tough to beat. I mean, everything's getting worked. Now, for those unfamiliar with it, that old school progression method is where you do 3 sets of 5 and you add reps as you are able. And over time, when you're strong enough to do 3 sets of 8, you add a little bit of weight, drop back down to 5s, and just build it up over time, working in the 5 to 8 rep range for 3 sets. You know, you're going to get a good amount of volume. That's a real solid way for guys to train who don't want to mess with a bunch of complicated programming, who just are trying to get pretty big, pretty jacked natural, or using very modest amounts of anything if they use anything. It's just a time-proven method. But deadlifting can be tough. Yeah, it's hard to do the multiple sets of deadlift like that. So I know you're building up to that triple and then doing some double overhand back off work. I think that's fine. The other 4 lifts, that works great. So what would I replace it with? I would say, honestly, that deadlift slot can really be kind of your weak link slot, right? If you want to get more explosive and just all around bigger and more explosive, do power cleans. I mean, 5x3 power clean, that's great. If you can do cleans correctly, you know, replacing every other workout with the deadlifts with that, yeah, I think that's fine. Because again, it's hard to recover from the deadlifts. That's easier to recover from. If you feel like you need the good mornings more, in other words, maybe you think you need a stronger thoracic region in your back, you know, the good mornings should be good for that. The Romanian deadlifts, maybe you need a little more hamstring development. You feel like something like your hamstrings are really a weak link at the bottom of your deadlift or something, you could do the Romanians. I'd lean in the direction, though, of the power clean or the good mornings for the most part, as long as grip isn't an issue. I feel like the Romanians can be a little better grip training. You know, that's what I would say. Look at what you're doing with your training and where you feel you need the most work, and pick the exercise of those that you're going to get the most out of. You know, I think those are all good exercises. They can all be used for filling the deadlift slots on a lot of the days where you know you can't handle heavy deadlifting. Any of those 3 work, and they all bring something different to the table. I would say base it upon where you feel that your weak links are at any given time. And using those other 4 exercises every workout, I think is going to give you the solid all-around base you want anyways. So really, it's just a matter of honestly assessing your own weaknesses and saying, hey, which of these lifts is going to work best for what I'm trying to do? And, you know, you can always do that from time to time with any of the lifts in there, right? There's going to be times on any one of those big lifts you might want to take some slots and replace it with something similar, just for a little bit of exercise variation. All right, next question. Hey Jason, is it a sign I need more rest between sessions if I was able to press a certain weight for 5 reps one day and then 2 days later could only hit it for 3 reps? I've been doing full body for 3 days, but I think I might need to bump it down to 2 per week. But it's weird because I just made strength gains before that session, which threw me off. But maybe I was tired because I woke up at 4 a.m. that day and went to the gym at 10:30 p.m. Thanks, coach. Yeah, I think that's really what happened. Your latter point, if you got up at 4 a.m. and you didn't train until 10:30 at night, you know, seeing a little bit of loss on your peak strength, I think that's totally reasonable. I think that's actually a valid explanation, because here's what I would say. When we start needing longer breaks between training sessions, that's oftentimes when it's time to start looking into periodization, right? That's usually a sign that, okay, maybe whatever sort of linear model you're using, you're kind of petering out on the gains. It's usually a sign. But I would say in your case, we have an alternative explanation, because what is it that we look at on any sort of basic linear type program? If you're not making progress or you're stalling, that the first things you need to address are things like rest time between sets, caloric intake, and sleep, right? Sleep, recovery. You've got to look at all of those factors. And before we start making adjustments to the program, we step back and say, hey, are these other things in order? All right? Did I get enough sleep between workouts? Did I get enough calories between workouts? You know, or am I trying to push through my training sessions too quickly, and maybe that's hurting me, you know, on some of the heavier sets? That's the stuff that we always look at first. Now, in this case, I'm glad that you threw the ladder in, because you recognize that and you see that, and you were saying, okay, I do know that I woke up at 4 a.m. I didn't train till 10:30. I think on this particular instance, I'm going to say that's actually a very viable explanation for what happened. Look, go back, get plenty of food, get yourself a couple of quality 8 hours of sleep several nights in a row, right? Get your sleep in order, and then come back and see how you do, and see if you don't regain that 5 reps instead of the 3. And if you don't, and you're consistently running into this problem, and you know the other stuff is on point, you know you really did get enough sleep, you didn't just work a 12-hour shift and have 6 hours of sleep the night before. But, you know, the funny thing is sometimes we hit PRs when we do that, by the way. It does happen. You train long enough, you are going to see that happen eventually, and it's just going to blow your mind when it does. But, yeah, then you might need to assess, hey, do I need to adjust my training further? But in this case, I think the rest and recovery end of it, I think that's actually what happened to you. I would lean in that direction. Get that sorted out and come back and try again. All right? Come back and try again before we start reducing or adjusting training. All right, next question. Coath. I know this is a strength and power channel, but what is your opinion on ab training? Is it like your calves largely genetic and body fat instead of direct work that makes them visible? I feel it's impeding my progress on other lifts, and I think the best thing to do is focus on my strength. Thanks. The shape of your abs is genetic. Absolutely. You can't change the shape of your abs. However, the difference between calves and abs, calves really don't respond that well just overall to training them for hypertrophy. They really don't. And then I'm not saying you can't grow your calves, but you are never going to see the amount of calf growth, for example, that you will bicep growth relative to your starting point, right? That's what I mean by that. The results are going to be lackluster in comparison to other muscles. Abs, you can make your abs grow a little bit, but realistically, thickening your core up, you're going to have to do a tremendous amount of work to really see a visible difference in the size of your abdominals. And anyone who's doing lots of heavy squatting and deadlifting and standing presses and other stuff is actually doing a pretty good chunk of that work anyways. As far as the way your abs look, if you want to do some extra ab work, and you feel it might help bring them out a little bit, that's fine. Just don't overtrain yourself. Don't push your abs beyond their recovery ability. I think extra ab work is fine. I think it's totally acceptable. In fact, I've been known to do my share of it, even as a strength athlete. But ultimately, the way your abs look is going to be 90% based upon your diet and body fat. That's literally going to be 90% of what you see there. I mean, perfect example, look how many dudes out there you do see who really don't know how to train, whose training programming is total garbage. They're not on drugs and they still have a nice six-pack because they diet and they burn through a lot of calories and they eat well. And they don't even necessarily know a lot about nutrition, but they eat fairly filling foods. They eat a decent amount of protein and they burn a lot of calories, right? And they still have great abs. Why do you think that is? When nothing else on their body is ultra jacked. Because your body fat is more important. Again, I'm not saying you can't train for bigger abs and a little more separation there with some hypertrophy. You can, but the vast, overwhelming majority, again, 90% of what your abdominals look like, maybe even 95%, is going to be based on your body fat. And that is going to be a product of your caloric intake, your diet, your energy expenditure. I mean, let's just be honest there. Now, that being said, I don't think there's anything wrong with doing a little bit of extra work for your abs. I don't think it's a bad thing. It's unlikely to cause you real problems, and it might offer you some advantages. So as long as you program it intelligently, I don't see a problem with it. Go ahead and do it if you want. But you do need to understand that if you're not lean enough to see your abs really well, that extra work probably isn't going to make much difference. Like, it's not going to make a significant difference visually, right? As long as you go into it understanding that. All right, guys, so that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 3.